Satu's gone, but my confidence is not swayed. I hope these guys aren't either. We'll find out shortly. What is up, you guys? Welcome to the PHNX Mercury podcast, or welcome back to the PHNX Mercury podcast. I am your host, Erica Lee Day. I'm joined by PG1, QB1, on and off the field, in and out of the studio, Stephen Prejean Garner. And I really don't want to call him the ball boy. It just don't feel right. But he is the ball boy. So what's up, Gil? Oh my gosh, how's it going, you guys? It's nice to be back together after our first little intro. Now we're back together after free agency's already kind of popped off. We got a little bit of a break there. How are you guys doing?
Free agency was a whirlwind, is what it was. It happened really fast, and it was hard to keep up with everything, but we did. And now we're on the eve of some basketball, so I feel good.
Some are saying it's still not done yet.
That's also true.
The cap space some teams got holding on to still, but doing well. Less than 24 hours from now, the Mercury will have finished preseason game 1. Welcome back, basketball. It feel like it just got back like 2 days ago, and then it's preseason game 1 already.
0 to 100.
There's a lot of pieces missing for the Mercury right now, so it's gonna be a fun watch, but it's gonna be a curiosity-inducing watch as well. To just wonder what everything looks like once the entire house is back together. But how you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited as ever to get back to the WNBA. Obviously, you guys know I cover 2 teams just like Steven. We're just 2 busy bees watching 2 WNBA teams, and I'm really excited to watch everybody play tomorrow. Honestly, as soon as I wake up tomorrow, I'm going to drink my coffee, and then I'm just going to be watching WNBA ball all day. I can't complain. That's my dream Saturday. So I'm stoked, and then I get to rein in the evening with some NBA. I mean, it doesn't get better to be me. I don't know. It probably doesn't. Or it does. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens later in October. We'll see if it gets better to be Erica. I don't know yet. But nonetheless, I'm excited to get into today's conversation with you guys. Like I said at the top of this, we haven't really had a conversation since since right after the CBA was signed.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. It feels like kind of a blur. Someone was asking me if we've done a show, and I was like, honestly, I don't know. You tell me. Did you watch the show or no? But obviously, when we met the last time, we weren't exactly sure what was going to shake out with the current roster of the Mercury. And, we could get into the expansion draft of it all, but I think the most important piece to start with is the, subtraction of Satou Sabally from the Phoenix Mercury's roster. She was in conversations between the Mercury and New York Liberty last year, and this year it seems that the tide finally turned for her, and she went on to join the Liberty this year. Just your guys' overarching thoughts on the move, and then we'll kind of get into what it means for the Mercury.
Yeah, for me, looking at Satou's last season, averaged 16.3 points, was an all-star. Did also average a little over 1 steal a game, 1.3 to be specific, 2.5 assists, 5.9 rebounds. And she got to the free throw line 4.7 times and shot one of her career best marks in terms of a percentage from the free throw line within all of that. So it was a very busy season for Satou. There was a lot of them trying to figure her out while her also just being really freaking good, which helps to figure someone out when you can just say, hey, we can always just press the give you the button and give you the ball and get out the way button whenever we want to. And needless to say, without Natasha Mack as well as Kahleah Copper early in the season, even Alyssa Thomas in multiple stretches, she was the mainstay. She was the most healthy of those players prior to the All-Star break. And then a little bit before All-Star break, she had her injury spell, and then she ultimately came back. But it was a great season of growth for her. I think more than anything, though, independent of numbers, just looking at impact, you saw what she did on a postseason stage. That was the one thing that felt like it was not necessarily fleeing, but left a little bit to be desired for her prior to last season. And she was on a team and she's too qualified for the X Factor, but she was as much of the driving force as anybody was for them getting to the finals based off of how the way she showed up in series 1 against the Liberty, particularly games 2 and 3, and then obviously throughout the entirety of the Minnesota Lynx series. So shout out Satou, hell of a season last year. Unfortunate that she's not back, but she did say she moved to New York because she was a little bit closer time zone wise to be in communication with her family. It wasn't media day, but her first availability with the Liberty. So that's her decision. She feels like she's in a better situation for herself than never against anybody choosing to be a better version of themselves if they think it's elsewhere.
Yeah, my first thought, it wasn't necessarily surprised. I think we kind of knew that that was something that could happen, and then to a certain point thought that it was probably going to happen. Then my next reaction was those college ties run deep, thinking about her reunited with Sabrina, having an opportunity to do the duck thing in New York City now. So those things came to mind. And then obviously the follow-up is thinking like, okay, now what? Like, what do the Merc do? How do they – obviously you don't, fill those shoes, but like, okay, how do you react to that? What are the moves that you have that are going to correspond to that? Because ultimately you like, dang, that sucks. They moved on. They were a big part of what we did, but the league just doesn't stop. The operations just don't stop. Now what do you do moving forward? And especially as fast as everything was going, it was like you didn't really have time to sulk over it. You wish them the best and say, okay, now what do we do for our future now? And I think that where we are at this point is a better spot as far as that goes.
I totally agree with you guys. And Stephen, you talked about something, this team was pretty much fragmented all year, whether it was right before the All-Star break, right before the playoffs. It was never at 100% strength. Even when Kahleah was playing, everyone was beaten, banged up, because that's just kind of the way things are at the end of any WNBA season. But particularly for this team, who never got an opportunity to be whole at the beginning of the year, to know what it was like to play with all of their stars on the floor. Like, Stephen and I spent a lot of time talking about the big three dynamic last season, but we didn't actually get a ton of big three dynamic on the floor. And so while obviously, yes, it's a huge, heartbreaking moment for Mercury fans, I think there's a lot to be said about the continuity that's going to exist from this team last year that we saw to this team now this year. I mean, in Nate Tibbetts' first year with the Mercury, there were only 2 returners in Kahleah Copper and Natasha Mack. And now you've got, I think they're up to 7 returners, if my memory serves correctly. I know I heard Mr. Shane Young, shout out him, the team reporter, talking about how they returned 70% of the minutes from last year. That's a stark difference from what we experienced last year at the same time when Stephen and I were stuck here trying to convince everybody that they still had a point guard. So I think there's a huge difference in where we're at now in training camp versus where we were at this time last year during training camp. And I think obviously, again, losing Satou, anyone, especially Kevin, who I'm sorry, my bad. I forgot to tell you guys who was driving the bus. Obviously, Kevo Post. I just realized, my bad. That's on me for real. Like I said, a little rusty. We're repairing. We're getting back in the groove. But any person, any Mercury fan is going to be heartbroken that someone who played as well as Satou did last year isn't with the team anymore. But that said, I've been kind of incited with a lot of confidence regarding the way that AT and Nate Tibbetts and Kahleah Copper have answered the question when they have been asked about how they're going to fill kind of the role of Satou Sabally, and it's collectively. And I think it was the same exact answer that Stephen and I gave last year when Satou went down with injury, is you don't replace Satou's production with one single person. You don't replace her versatility with one single person. You're going to have to do it from as a team. And that really hasn't changed. So like Gil said, you just kind of, the grind doesn't stop. You just got to keep going.
I think the context of it all is that it's very, 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 very hard to get a championship season stamped with a manufactured big three. And I say that because I think the 2 loudest non-New York Liberty big threes you can look at, you got Indiana with Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell. Mm-hmm. Only one of those 3 was not drafted. So that hits a little different. Mm-hmm. I think the other part of it as well, and you look at everything that's going on, I don't know why I just drew a blank, but you look at what's going on in Vegas. You look at their 3 players. Yes, they traded for Chelsea Gray, of course, but drafted. Jackie Young, drafted. Obviously, the biggest A of them all, Asia Wilson. Mm-hmm. So, it's different it's different how you arrive into your big three, and I think that matters a lot for the roster building dynamic of it. I also think just template-wise for success, the Mercury saw their most success when there was only 2 of those 3 on the court at the same time. Now, obviously, you would never say, I would just rather not have a third star to have mixed and staggered within your rotations. But if you're looking at, okay, this didn't work in our favor, we don't feel like there's another something that we can feasibly bring into house. You look at those numbers and you look at, okay, with Alyssa Thomas and Kahleah Copper on the floor with Natasha Mack, we had the best offensive rating without Satou Sabally on the court. And in tandem with that, they had the third best net rating. So you're looking at, okay, we can build around this house. There's a foundation there. All those players were big minute getters in the finals last season for them, big pieces to the pillars of identity they've established and the culture they're running forward with. There's still some things there. It might not necessarily be as loud or even as big in terms of stature and production that Satou brings, but there's still a lot of firepower there. And I think the Mercury, if they strike well in health, they can find themselves right back where they ended last season. And I imagine it ends a little different in terms of what they're able to do on that stage based off of the experiences and continuity that's now an advantage for them.
Continuity and what you talk about with the way that star trios or star quartets or whatever it is are built, and it's different when you draft them, right? And they have an opportunity to grow together in the league under that same system, regardless of if they're a year, 2, 3 years apart. They're all, for the most part, coming up under the same system. Even if the coaches are different, they're still in that same city, in that same franchise organization, and they all kind of learn that together. Whereas when you bring people in from other places to build a big three that way, the continuity just naturally isn't there, and they all have their own habits and things they've learned over the course of their respective careers. And in addition to just learning how each other play on the court, there's the overarching part that you also have to kind of figure out that makes it a little more difficult. Not to say, to your point, that it's better to do it by committee than have another star. Basketball is a talent-driven sport. It's a talent-driven league. The team with the most talent oftentimes wins or has the best chances to win. But as far as figuring things out, as we talked about, doing it by committee, replacing that production, replacing that void with several people isn't necessarily always easier, but sometimes it could be easier because you can just figure out different bits and pieces to make it work and make it more malleable and make it fit around the 2 stars you already have in place.
Well, and I want to talk about the returners. Obviously, we've talked about Ka and Mac already, and the AT of it all. Can't leave out AT. Just off of those 3 returners alone, like very little bits of the way that the Mercury are going to play basketball are going to change. Like the ball is still going to run through AT. It's still going to be her team. And at the end of the day, an AT driven team is going to be a defensive minded team. And so I think, the continuity piece of it is huge because these players are used to playing alongside of one another. And when you are as defensive minded as this team has been for the last 2 years and is going to continue to be going into year 2 with AT, like the continuity piece is absolutely massive. So I think, and I haven't been in training camp yet. Sorry, I live so far. You can kill me later if you want, but I see Mac. I hear the way that Nate Tibbetts is talking about how yoked Mac has got in the offseason, and I'm expecting a 3-point yoked shooter from Natasha Mack. So I think in terms of returners, like I couldn't have asked for much more. Obviously, you're not thrilled about losing anyone in the expansion draft, but considering who we could have lost and who the Mercury actually ended up keeping, I feel rather satiated. And then on top of it, you couple with getting, Sami Whitcomb back, you get Kat back on a training camp contract. You got Monique Kakalmakani, who proved herself to be a fantastic ball handler last year and a great on-ball defender. I just don't think that they could have done much better in terms of retention, especially, like I said, after 2024 when they lost, 85% of their team to free agency.
To that point, Erica, we talk about like the way that the offseason went for the entire league, right? Like to varying degrees, there's different levels of continuity across the league. So you have somewhat of a head start, or the more continuity that you have on your team is the advantage that you have as far as the rest of the league goes. So when you talk about AT being the person that everything runs through on both sides of the floor, that is a hell of a head start compared to other people who might not necessarily have that, or other teams who are working to incorporate big pieces that they've added and are kind of redoing things. So not starting with her and then talking about everybody else, talk about Sami, talk about Mac and everybody else that's coming back that are so important to this team. It's not like, oh, hey, well, like our top person is back and then everybody else around them isn't important. It's like you got a lot of important people back and you have a head start, or at least you aren't behind the curve in terms of the familiarity with last year and figuring things out on the fly, because I do think that the nature of how this offseason went with free agency and just everything kind of happened in the blink of an eye, we kind of talked about already. Whoever has the most of that will kind of get off to a better start this season, and the better you start, the better you can help yourself in the standings in the long run.
That's the growing marathon dynamic of a WNBA season now, up to 44 games.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit more of a margin for error, but there's also a little bit more room for, if you do have continuity as an advantage in-house, you can do a little bit more from the start. And I think that's something that I've talked with DeWanna Bonner and Sami Whitcomb about in particular, and they said it's 1,000% an advantage to have, instead of learning a bunch of new things with a new group, we already know what it is from this foundation of 8 players that they're returning from last season. They can just hit the ground running off of that experience. That allows for Nate to have to do less thinking or less teaching because he has delegates of different capacities. Monique isn't back and Kat isn't back yet, but they still have other pieces that are in-house at this present moment for training camp. They can teach players. Kiana Williams I talked to even as well, and she said, yeah, that changes things. I got to talk with Kahleah Copper about, you should be in this corner, Kyle, not that corner. And then they get rolling from there. And there's a lot of seamless communication that's happening. And I feel like them having that as a multiplier to the learning part of training camp and kind of getting players up to speed, that helps with everything that's going to be when Kat comes back and when Mo comes back and when other players come back from overseas, because there's just so many different leaders that it can be funneled through multiple pieces and allow them to hit the ground running.
I think that's big. You talk about it. I mean, that's one thing I was going to say, having more people on the court and players who know, because last year it feels like everybody, you only had 2 returners last year. Yeah. So now to have multiple delegates, as you said, kind of helping the coach and people leading vocally and also by example, that makes everything go more swiftly and more fluid as far as that goes.
Well, and I want to get into like the numbers of it all, but not until after we see the first game played by the Mercury. I heard Nate Tibbetts say one thing about pace. And Steven and I talked a lot last year about how different it is to play with or without Kahleah Copper. And I feel like pace is actually a perfect place to start when you're talking about the difference in playing with and without her. And so I think having Ka from the jump is going to really help position this team to be in the spot that they need to be late in the year. Because like I said earlier, like when you're a player of Kahleah's caliber, and, on my way home today, I'm kind of racking in my brain, like, if Kahleah is at full strength, like who in the league is really better than her? I'm thinking like not 97% of the league, I'm going to say, is going to be a worse player than Kahleah Copper. And I'm not trying to be mean to those players, but that's just the truth of the matter and how good she is and how much attention she demands on the floor. And so I think, playing alongside a player with her gravity from the jump is going to really help position this team later in the year.
Yeah, definitely. Kevin, we can go ahead and roll into Nate Tibbetts speaking with me about just what it is he has expectation-wise from the Mercury in training camp and throughout the preseason, as far as them laying this and establishing this foundation. And here was everything that he had to say.
Yeah, we're going to play to the second and third side more. We're not going to hold it as much. We're going to play a little bit quicker, just side to side, and then defensively just continue to compete, understanding our coverage, and those. I think we've built a good foundation for who we want to be. The other one offensively is just take care of the ball. At times last year, we had some turnovers, and we feel like we've got a lot of good shooters. If we take care of it, we'll get some good looks.
So when the Mercury offense was at its best last season, first of all, it was just in Alyssa Thomas's hands. Shocker.
Surprise, surprise.
No one would have guessed that one. No one would have guessed that. But more than just having it in AT's hands, because the defense loves to load up on her and try to take away her driving lanes, when they were able to get it, let's say it was a Mo'Anika Komakani and Natasha Mack empty corner pick and roll on one side. And then on the second side, as it swings there, Alyssa Thomas is the one playing connector. And then it flows into Kahleah Copper or Satou Sabally or Sami Whitcomb cutting and allowing for one of those other 2 names I didn't mention to be involved and come off of a handoff with Alyssa. That tempo, that flow, get into the second side with purpose was always something that was beneficial for them. How many backdoor passes from AT to Kahleah Copper in an empty corner situation did we see when they were at their best? How many of just the traditional handoffs as AT gets it and then gets to Kahleah in that left corner did we see work at a high efficiency in terms of points per chance? That was one of the best dribble handoff duos in the league for a reason. And similarly, you can multiply, or you can take Kahleah out, you can throw Sami in there, and now you have genuinely, I think it was the second best on a certain type of volume in terms of points per chance. So getting to that second side and having it as an emphasis from the start and not being something that kind of surfaces for them in the back third or back end of the regular season going into the playoffs as a part of their foundation, I think it really helps. It takes some of the creating pressure off of AT, and I think it puts the defense in a bind in ways that they maybe didn't get to until 4.5 months later from this time last season.
You have to choose which way they're comfortable with you beating them, right? And live with something. And I think that purpose and that intent that we talked about, knowing, okay, we're trying to get the second side. We're trying to get these reversals. We're trying to get the ball flowing and moving. We don't want the stick. We're looking for high-quality shots, get our shooters in good position to make plays. That kind of ties back into what we were saying because, hey, look, there are 7, 8 people who know exactly this already because they're familiar with it. And now it's a quicker learning curve. Like they can figure this stuff out. And the same applies to defense. He talked about we're going to compete on the defensive end. And the big thing, regardless, like understanding the terminology, understanding what's being asked of you and demanded of you without that much explanation allows you to kind of focus on the minuscule things, the small things in the margins, which again gives this team a big head start, which makes these preseason reps even more important because I think you'll see more fluid than typical because there is that retention. There is going to be that level of communication. Even if the returners aren't available or playing, they can pass that on and teach that as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you real quick too, just going through like a training camp capacity, it hits different when you can speak the same language. There's a continuum. There's this foundation for the crib that we're trying to establish already built, and guys can just pick up off of that with language. But I think also if there are new pieces, having guys already in that spot that have been through it to just go and do it on the court, and you're seeing it repetition-wise, time and time again. If there's a player that's supposed to be backing up Kahleah Copper in terms of the depth chart or Natasha Mack on the depth chart, they can look and watch them just operate on the court from day one of training camp and be like, okay, that might be 1 less or 2 or 3 less questions or ambiguity that might surface just because I'm sitting here watching. I'm sitting here watching Kevin do his thing producing. I might pick up a thing or two on how to produce. That don't mean I'm going to try to get behind the laptop and cook because that's not my thing. But I can learn a couple things just by watching. And I think that watching dynamic, especially once they get back to full and everybody's in-house, I think it's going to be something that really gives them like an advantage. Everybody else is starting without a sprinter's block, and they have like 2 or 3 of them to just kind of give them a punch out the rip.
I think it's interesting because when you think about training camp, and this is something that people might not know unless they peel the layers behind it. It doesn't matter what level of basketball you're at, whether it's middle school, high school, college, or the best leagues in the world, the W and the NBA. Those first days, you're just establishing building blocks, and you're going through a lot of stuff that feels like it's elementary. It feels like it's just like very basic stuff, but that's the important part to lay that foundation. Understand, hey, we want to play off 2 here. Hey, here's how we want to drive. Here's who we want. Here's how our defensive principles, all these things. But to the point you made, if it's known already or there's a certain level of understanding, you don't have to spend as much time on it. It's nothing. You never cut that corner. You never skip those steps, but how much time you spend on those steps is often determined by where the team is. So I think about that, and as you said, kind of hearing everything, and it sounds like the team is picking up on everything pretty quickly. It sounds like the team is confident in where they are with that. Obviously, just a few days in, like there's still a long way to go, and the opening day is still a little bit of a ways away, but it'll be here before we know it. But just to be as far as that goes, the building blocks are already, I guess, in a lot of ways, are stronger than they were, and that gives you a big time advantage.
Well, and I haven't brought up one of the bigger pieces in the returning bits, and I apologize. That's on me, DeWanna Bonner, who was not here to start the season last year. And I think she's such a big piece of what Nate Tibbetts was trying to execute in the playoffs last year. And so I think, having her here for a training camp where she's getting to kind of do like you guys are saying and like teach the new people and be that veteran leader who's teaching them the language that Nate Tibbetts and company and staff and Kahleah Copper and Alyssa Thomas are all using next to them is very, very, very helpful. So I think the veteran leadership that they were able to bring back was top notch. And then on top of it, they, Nick Uren has not shied away from going overseas to pick some people up in the free agency period. In fact, you might argue no one loves to be across the ocean more than him because it seems that he just loves to go pick up those foreign players. So I'm excited to get into kind of the nitty gritty with who's going to make the roster. But I see we have a comment that asked if we have a 12 yet. I don't have a 12 yet. I don't know about y'all. I haven't even seen most of these humans in person yet. So please give me a week, okay? Give me the week.
We can just get the easy parts out the way now. Alyssa Thomas, I think we would agree that AT is
Well, I
gonna
think
make
so.
it.
I think I like
I don't
like
want to
her
assume.
I like
don't
her
wanna
chances.
assume. Okay, I like her chances a lot too. She's pretty good last season.
Solid.
She's pretty good. She did some historic things, like all of that fun stuff. She mattered a lot to a brand new team. Shocker. Wouldn't believe it. I think I saw the stat yesterday or a couple of days ago. There's only 2 players in the league's history that have gotten triple doubles with 2 different teams. It's her and Candace freaking Parker. Look at a lot of the things Alyssa Thomas has done over the course of her career. It's her and the Candace Parker are heavily involved in a lot of those conversations at that position. So I think she Kevin, you think AT is making the final roster?
Man,
I
hope so, man.
Tough question.
I really feel like AT deserves a shout, but like y'all said, I think she has a good chance.
Good chance. Okay, I can vibe with that.
I put it like at least I don't know, above 50% for sure. Somewhere above 50%. Somewhere north of 50.
Better than the coin toss.
What
Yes.
about Kahleah Copper? She's pretty good last season too.
Yeah,
She finished top 10 in MVP her first season with the Mercury. Did some fun stuff in addition to that over the last couple of seasons. She's pretty good.
Pretty good ball player.
Pretty good. After that though, Monica Komakani guaranteed, Natasha Mack guaranteed, DeWanna Bonner guaranteed, Sami Whitcomb guaranteed, Kat Westbeld guaranteed, and Kiana Williams I feel like is someone that's going to be around for how she stuck around and played some impactful minutes for them, trying to navigate the regular season, especially once players like Lexi Hell went down with the injuries that they sustained last season and things like that. So there's a handful of names that you can just already etch in stone and say, okay, this player is going to be a part of the team. There's some international players that are definitely going to probably become quick favorites, no different than Monica Komakani did for a lot of Mercury fans last season. And if you have been watching this podcast since around this time last season, you were warned about Monique. And then you saw Monique quickly hit the scene about 2 or 3 games into the season, defending the likes of Skylar Diggins, was Smith at that time. She's Skylar Diggins now. But defending players like that while also going to get buckets on the other side of the floor. And those 2 names for me in particular, Noémie Brochant, I think she's going to be someone that really strikes in a chord with a lot of fans and really kind of help build out some lineups for the Mercury over the course of this season. And then Ayayi as well. It's going to be somebody that obviously has spent time with Alyssa. The Mercury broadcast or Mercury main account did a good job of kind of pubbing that. But I think independent of that part, having that experience with AT, if you go back and look at some of the things that were happening with FIBA as well as the Olympics over the last 2 to 3 rounds of that, those 2 names in particular with that French national team, that French national team has some ballers on the men and women's side.
Yep.
Their basketball level is rising at a rapid kind of ascension of pace, and these are 2 direct examples that Mercury fans will have in-house to kind of assess as they kind of get their footing on the W stage.
I also think that Kiara Linskins is another good pick from overseas. She's one of the only true bigs that's on the team. I think she's like one of the only players other than Natasha Mack who's over 6'4" that's on this training camp roster. So, but I mean, and I put the note on the doc for a reason. Like the Mercury has $2.1 million in cap space still. And
Not there for no reason. They're not saving. You're not saving money by not spending it on the cap.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I don't think the Phoenix Mercury is done doing whatever they're doing yet. So I'm not trying to tell you to not be comfortable, but maybe just don't pull the covers over your head just yet. Like I think there's still some more cooking to be done in the kitchen. And so I don't exactly know how this plays out, but I do think that like of the people that are at training camp or the people that even haven't made it to the training camp yet, there's probably like 7 roster spots, like you said, Steven, that are completely spoken for, taken, null and void. But then there's 3 to 4 that are there for the taking. And then you've got the few overseas people that are going to come in and trickle in over the next week and a half. But truly, like this is a very competitive training camp, and I think that's a very good thing. I think when we think back to like the last 2 seasons, there have been a lot of people invited to training camp that maybe did not make the roster, but they ended up getting invited back or maybe signing a later in the season, contract. Look at Kiana Williams, great example of that for that matter, who was, needed at the end of the season. I mean, absolutely no ifs, ands, or buts. Like the Phoenix Mercury needed a backup point guard. So, it's just good to have for later. Plus, obviously, the Mercury has 2 Development spots. My goodness gracious. So there's a few spots to go around, but I don't think the Mercury's done cooking in the kitchen yet.
They're definitely not. Go ahead.
I was gonna say a few things that stood out in my mind before we kind of go too far into that. Ayayi stands out to me as well. I listened to what AT had to say about her, calls her Valu, but said that she is a player who is feisty on defense, and she said that we have a similar fire. So I think fans will really love the fact that you have somebody else that brings a similar fire that AT, which we know about.
Erica's barking.
So that's cool. And the other part that I was curious your thoughts, both of you guys, because $2.1 million is a significant chunk of change. I would
hold $1.
I would gladly take something like that. But are you at all concerned that if it is somebody from the outside, that you do run into that same issue of, oh man, this is maybe a big fish that you have to worry about incorporating everything, or all the things that we've talked about already that are already working in this team's favor continuity wise, it shouldn't be that big of an issue if there is someone bigger that they're trying to maybe get, not last minute, but there's something that they're trying to do with that 2.1 million.
Yeah, I think that's a relevant question. I think the strength in numbers part of the 7 main rotation pieces that are returning, and then when you add Kiana Williams, that number leaps to 8. I think that allows for you to absorb someone different than trying to build out a brand new team identity, set a new standard for a culture after Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner. Get players like Mac and Kahleah Copper healthy, while also trying to learn about Satou Sabally, but also try to incorporate her into your team scheme. Like that's a lot of newness on top of just unsure things with the injury side that they were having to work through during training camp last season, which again should take to another level the appreciation for how they finished the season, just in the final stage. That roster, that team last season was not in the business of moral victories, so I don't want to paint that picture. But to do what they did through all of the internal adversity that they had to face naturally with so much newness against a bunch of teams that Team 1 you play in the playoffs was in the finals the season before. Team 2 you play in the playoffs was in the finals the season before that lost to the team that you beat in the first round. And then the team you played, the biggest of the Monstars, was the team that's won 3 out of the last 4 championships, and has continuity galore from coaching staff to players. Like, that's a lot to have to go up against and still figure out how to get it done time and time again up until the final round. That's a lot to do. So I think them having that proof of concept that they can figure it out, but not have to do it to even close to the extremes that they had to last season, this season, I think allows for them to absorb a player like Ayayi and allow for her to just come in and be herself while also teaching her at the same time. But back to the roster point, Kevin, if we could get the picture up of the roster real quick. There's a lot of names on here, so it's a little hard to see them all, but I think the names that I wanted to look at most in detail, 2 rookies that the Mercury were able to get their hands on after the draft. So we got Shea Shesky from Indiana, a player that can shoot the absolute leather off the basketball, a player that can thrive both on the ball and off the ball, which is something that you have to have the duality to do to play with someone like Alyssa Thomas and Kahleah Copper. Smaller guard, yes, but there's a lot of fight and fire that comes with Shesky. I think that matters a ton. I think it's going to be a lot to kind of glean from what she does in preseason, especially trying to get used to a new level, get used to maybe a quicker tempo for a guard that is a playmaker, and obviously what it's going to look like on defense as far as absorbing contact, being able to guard your yard and things like that. Other name I wanted to get to, Dugan. And I just want to let it breathe for a second, because Dugan is a player that can do a lot on the basketball floor. She can Dugan a lot, yes. Maggie was someone that scored a lot of points, that was the hub for an offense, that was the engine for an offense, that did shoot the ball fairly well, showed some defensive versatility, showed some playmaking chops. I don't think it's a apples to apples comparison in any capacity, but I feel like just from watching Dugan's college tape, especially in her senior season, there's a little bit of the Cat Westbeld accord that she strikes in versatility and also just the ability to kind of operate in multiple different ways. Now, it remains to be seen what that looks like translating to the W level to be getting the Cat Westbeld comp, because what she did last season, starting for this team when Mac was out, and then just being a super piece, like almost a 6 starter in multiple reps, is different. But I think those are 2 pieces that show the detail that they move with outside of the natural draft or free agency pool.
And it's something you said to me when we were talking about the roster turnover or lack thereof or whatever you want to call it. Trust this front office.
Yeah.
Trust this coaching staff. Trust their development. The proof is in the concept. We've seen it already. We've seen their ability to identify people who will fit within the scheme and the system, and the ability to pick the right people to do those things and press the right buttons. So I feel like that should give you some confidence in these names who may be largely unfamiliar right now, but know that you're going to know their names at some point, and it'll be for good reasons.
Yeah, if I could follow up real quick with Dugan, just going back to my notes, led the Atlantic 10 in points on average with 21.1 per game, shot 50%, 50.6 to be specific from the field. Also, 7.9 rebounds, 3.9 assists, 1.1 blocks, and 0.9 steals per game. And the shooting splits went 59.9, 40.4, and 89 from the line. That is not something you happenstancely walk your way into. And there was a little bit of a build-up to that, too. And on the 38% from deep was what she averaged in her entirety of college, 38.5% on 4.8 attempts from deep. That screams this is someone that you should at least be taking a flyer on, whether it be by way of the developmental route to having players within your team on your roster, or if she just outright wins one of the last roster spots and you allow for her to get reps building up to speed by going up against the likes of Ayayi or Alyssa Thomas or Kat Westbeld or Kahleah Copper at practice. I think those are two names that I would keep in mind. Shesky kind of strikes the same accord as Shyla Hill did last season. For anybody that was kind of around watching us and kind of listening to us speak to some of the players that were in training camp for the Mercury last year, I think the difference is that Hill didn't have the opportunity by way of developmental roster spots to make the roster. It was either you're there or you're not. And I think having a little bit of gray area to play in terms of playing a future pick or a future move with a piece to keep it in-house, I think puts them in great position to have some talent being fostered while still contending at the same time, which is really hard to strike that balance in the court with.
I also want to point to the fact that this is my third year covering the Phoenix Mercury. This is their first time in those 3 years that they even had a single draft pick. And, for them to have built in the way that they have and have as many options as they have in a training camp where there was so much movement in free agency, there was so much opportunity domestically, and they still went and did it their way. I'm very much impressed with the way that the front office sticks to their guns, and they're not going to sway from what they want to do just because that's what every other team in the WNBA is doing. They do things their way. It's worked for them. And you hear Nate Tibbetts say it in availabilities as well. Why, if it ain't fixed, don't broke it, or if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Oh my goodness. But, and they've really stuck to that. And I think there's a lot of power in that when you know that your system is malleable and you can shape it to be exactly what you want it to be your way. There's not obviously it can go wrong. You never know how these pieces are going to fit together. But if you're doing it your way, you don't get to sit at the end of the season and cry because, it didn't work out. Okay, well, we start over, we do it our way again, and we see how it goes. But they don't waver from their way. And I think that that's a really important piece when you're roster building in the way that they have over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it kind of to your point with Linskins, just to kind of reel it back to pieces that we're talking about as far as names individually. Linskins' most recent season completed over in Russia, 14 points, 61.3% from two, 40% from deep. That's from a big, 40% from deep. Also grabbed 6 rebounds, 2.6 assists, and had almost a block a game in tandem with the steal average per game. That's a lot.
That's pretty good.
That's a lot. Now, again, you want to see what those numbers look like translating to the league, to the W level, the peakest of peak of women's basketball. But that's a lot to deal with. Even if some of those numbers are chopped in half and you keep those shooting splits, 61.3% from 2 and 40% from 3, that's a lot. That's another big they can play with Alyssa Thomas. That's another big they can play with Kahleah Copper, but provide them space in ways that outside of Kat Westbeld, no one else in their front court showed to be able to do last season.
Steven, I do want to take a moment to just kind of give you a second to talk about any other major observations you've had in training camp, because Gil, I don't know if you've been there, and I feel kind of bad because I should have asked before the show started, because that's, my job as the host. But, Steven's been there, gotten to talk to players. I obviously have watched the availabilities, but I feel like the vibes are different in person. You know what I mean? You can pick up on things a little differently. So just Steven's opportunity to kind of talk about what he's seen in person.
Yeah, for sure. I'll start with they're aware of all the noise, of all of the things being said, how they're continuing to be counted out, no different than they were last season, and no different than last season. They're taking all of that external motivation that people continue to give them, and they're parlaying it into opportunity and advantage. And they're just, that chip on their shoulder they had last season grew bigger after losing in the finals alone. But you add to that people continuing to doubt them and count them out. The chips just getting bigger and bigger, and it's looking like a brand of chips that I'm not going to name. But when you take them out the wrapper, it's hard to get to the bottom and kind of get them out. Those chips are stacking high. That being said, yeah.
Not Ringles.
Yeah, no.
Not Tingles.
No.
Got it.
Yeah. Yes. I'm like D'Antoni. But Kevin, we can go ahead and cue up the Sami Whitcomb clip we have. So obviously Sami had no shortage of a list of players and teams that were talking to her, trying to bring them in. All-time great shooter, can be malleable as anybody in the league in terms of fitting with the team and playing to a role. Here's what she had to say on why she chose the Phoenix Mercury.
With the Mercury?
The people from top to bottom, the people, obviously it was great to have the role that I had and all of that, but the people, the belief that they, how they pour into me. It was a really special year, obviously because of what we did on the court, but how we were off the court made it really special too.
What I hear in that is that there's a good culture around this organization.
And that's a word. Culture and identity is a word that gets thrown around entirely too loosely by my eye. But they definitely have it in spades in the ways in which they want to have it. And I think that's something that's going to allow for them, like we talked about earlier, hit the ground running. You got players like Sami coming back, not just because she's comfortable where she is, but she thinks they can win there. And that's going to be something that permeates from the top end of the roster to the bottom end, and everybody that's able to make the team. Having players like Sami that are choosing them. And I think the reasoning why is as important as anything. You keep talking about the people. You hear it on the Sun side all the time. Matt Ishbia talked about as they made the shift on the Sun side and what they wanted to continue onward with what they established in this first season as owner of the Mercury, they want to nail the people side as much as anything. They said that talent on rosters and success can be done in multiple different ways, but the most sustainable way that they're able to document is when you got good people in-house. And it feels like they're starting to work to establish that, again, in the now second season in the post-Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner era.
I agree. I think that culture has not been a weakness for this team since Nate Tibbetts has gotten here. I think back to when Diana Taurasi and BG were here. That team loved each other, got Krispy Kreme. Sorry, Max, if I wasn't supposed to say that. But they were stopping in the hot donut drive-through. Year two, what are they doing? Hot donut drive-throughs. Like I think back to like little moments when they're walking through the big the unnamed burger joints drive-through after late night games in places where maybe there's not that many food places open at night. I think those moments kind of speak for themselves. And Sami being overseas, playing in a new place this year, I heard her talk about how she played in Turkey this year instead of Australia and how it helped her grow immensely. And I'm sure like when you're in a brand new place like that, you're thinking, oh man, I just want to go somewhere that kind of feels like home, even if it's not my actual home. And it's nice to know that Phoenix can be that for her and everyone that is on the team, really.
I appreciate what Laura says too, like the fact that it permeates the organization and fans feel like they're part of the culture too. Like that is super important. And I feel like you see that oftentimes, like the best teams, very, 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 very rarely is there a good team that doesn't have players that like each other. Mm-hmm. And like, it sounds very simple. It sounds like the most basic building block of human interaction, but like when the team likes each other and they're happy for one another's success, then the team can kind of form its own identity as a group. And I know we talk about cultural identity thrown around a lot, but when it does hold true and you actually can use it and it's appropriate in that situation, that is an attribute that's just as important as your execution and all of that. Like, because you can't get there without having a group that plays for one another, and that's really important. And to have that already established, again, sets you ahead of a lot of other squads.
Yep. It's just to the Sami part of it all. Last season, 17 players averaged 5 attempts from deep or more last season. She was number 7 at 36.1%. Who outdid her by a little over 1% was Kahleah Copper. And you got 2 of those players, again, back in-house in addition to other shooters that are going to add to that mix this upcoming season. So that's a fun group. That's a fun kind of dynamic and foundation that, again, they can just hit the ground running off of last season. And I'm looking forward to the season that Sami Whitcomb has in store. Erica, did you have anything else you wanted to speak on with Sami in particular? Okay. DeWanna Bonner is someone else I had a chance to speak to, and she's never short of golden quotes. Just a great, the kids love to call it aura. DB has an amazing aura. Someone that's very fun and easy to speak to, but also can recount on experience in ways that almost no one else in the league can. And I got to talk with her about just what they're expecting preseason-wise. Or it wasn't me, actually. This was someone else that got to speak with her about this in particular. And here's what she had to say.
Yeah, we're going to Nate's hometown, so that's pretty cool. Everybody's like, have you been there before? Like, everybody's like, no. So it's like new beginnings, something new that we've never seen before, because I've never been to South Dakota. But yeah, you're 16 and I'm going to South Dakota. How crazy is that? So yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm excited to change the scenery and get out there and play against some different competition and see kind of where we measure up. Not really looking to, go out and have our best performance. We just need a measuring stick and see how we can keep building day by day. So that's exciting.
And so the ever steady, again, the aura permeating through the screen, permeating through the mics, permeating through your speakers. DB is just such a class act as a basketball player alone. And I think that when you have someone that never burns bridges, that allows for the door to always be open to return somewhere. Also, you add to that being a good person, just also a great basketball player on top of that. Like, that helps with all of that as well. And DeWanna not being thrown into the fire of coming back to the Mercury a little bit past the halfway point of the season, but being able to start the season through training camp and being able to be a significant piece in terms of the building blocks, I think she's in for a season where she can not feel pressed to have to hit her stride right away. And she can do what most veterans are enabled to do when the roster is built well, and that's kind of ease their way into things. She says she's a late bloomer in her last recent media availability, and speaking about just being better later in the season than early on. And the way that their depth is starting to shake out, we'll see who finishes training camp on the roster, but she should be afforded to play less minutes early on, to play more on the back end and provide that impact that she did last season.
I mean, that's the answer I heard. That was a 16-year veteran talking. That's something, like, you think about how many training camps that she's gone through, how many different groups and rosters she's seen, how many all-time greats she's played next to, had to prepare for, all of those things. So when you hear that perspective, and for me, like, it's like you got to listen to what she has to say. And that's why the aura permeates. And that's why, she said, look, we're not too worried about the results per se as far as wins or losses, but what are we going to learn about ourselves to continue to improve on? So when game one that actually counts comes around, we're ready for it. When game 20, and we don't look back, and when you're approaching game 44, say, man, I wish we were doing this or that during game 1, 2, and 3. So it's just good to have that veteran presence that also, by the way, is still very impactful in her minutes on the court too.
And I think it's also pretty cool for the Mercury too, even in the post-BG, post-DT era, still have somebody that was a mainstay, that was one of the pillars for the Mercury kind of coming into their own and being one of those kind of blue bloods, if you will, of the W. And being able to kind of know what it was like back then to wear and don Mercury across the jersey, but be in this new iteration and be able to kind of carry that torch into the new era as well. I think it's pretty cool. It's a little bit of basketball poetry, if you will. And I think, again, she's in for another impactful season in ways that we saw her be able to put forth in the 24 games she played last season prior to the playoffs.
Sorry, guys, I'm not trying to look like I'm not uninterested in what you're saying. In fact, quite the opposite. It's just 2 weeks in a row that I've done a Friday afternoon podcast, and Arizona women's basketball decides to get a commitment as soon as we press go live. And it's just very rude of them to really do that to me. Becky Burke, if you're watching, why would you do that to me? That's not very nice. That's not very polite. But yeah, I just want to say I'm not listening to you guys. I'm just doing a little.
Never was in doubt. Never was in doubt.
Okay.
But kind of piggybacking off of what DeWanna was speaking to in terms of the excitement level for preseason game 1 and to get things rolling, to start collecting data, go up against a different team, a different crop of players, different play style, all of that fun stuff. Kevin, we can go ahead and get the injury reports for tomorrow up so that we can all see that. So as you can see on the Mercury side, Yarden Garzon is the only player that's out for the Mercury tomorrow. So we get to see literally everybody else in play in some capacity I imagine we see the starters play maybe a quarter, maybe a couple minutes into the second, and then everybody else kind of gets their opportunity to start competing for those final spots. It's all about what that game tape looks like. But on the Sky side of things, it's a laundry list already. Obviously, Dejanay Carrington had a foot procedure that took place over the offseason, kind of stemming from everything that kept her out of the late part of the season for the Minnesota Lynx last year. She'll be out. Azurá Stevens is out with a knee injury. Courtney Vandersloot, obviously coming back from the knee injury that she sustained in the kind of early portion of last season. So older player, lower leg extremity injury. It's going to take some time for her to come back. Maddie Westbeld, sister of Kat Westbeld, is out for reconditioning purposes. And then Elizabeth Williams is a player that provides a lot of impact for the Skies, not with the team at the present moment, but is working her way back to kind of game shape and getting things rolling there.
My takeaway is they got 2 Phoenix siblings too. You talk about Elizabeth Williams and Maddie Westbeld. It's just a lot of connection between these two franchises. So that was just my thought.
No, for sure.
I'm so excited to watch them play each other. I know the Sky is going to look like a completely new team, and for that I'm so excited. But at the same time, oh my gosh, just to watch some WNBA on my TV is going to feel like world peace, you know?
Yeah, I think it's going to also be fun to see Kahleah Copper as well as Natasha Mack going up against the team that they have ties with from the past. That's always fun, even if it is in a preseason capacity. But yes, to your point, Erica, the Sky team, they put together a fun roster. Kia Jackson, available. Skylar Diggins, available. Camila Cardoso, back with the team as of a few days ago, will be available for the game as well. There's some fun names involved with this game that I think is going to be able to kind of test the Mercury in ways that other teams maybe necessarily won't be able to. So you get to learn a little bit more about yourself based off of some of the dominant forces that they have on their roster and playing in preseason game 1.
And the biggest thing you talked about, the compete level is going to be there from the get-go. But then also, like, when you get into the later stages in the game, you talk about some of the people who are fighting for roster spots. You get a great opportunity to evaluate what a lot of people have and bring to the table. And oftentimes it's not measured in makes and misses. It's some other things in, like, how well they're retaining information, how sharp are they out there. Because sometimes you see players who might not seem like they're bound to make the team because they didn't perform well. You might see somebody, or by the numbers, right? And you might see somebody who has a loud performance and you're like, oh, they're definitely going to make the team. And it doesn't necessarily always mean that. So it's really important to kind of watch that compete level, watch how people are retaining things, how sharp they are, because that'll give you a good idea of what to expect when this team takes form.
I can't agree more. Do you guys have anything else? Steven, do you have any other clips from training camp before I rip the Band-Aid off about these uniforms that I must purchase 17 of?
Now we ran through all of our clips from from training camp through the first week. Ran through the injury report for tomorrow as well as the roster at this present moment as it stands. We'll continue to emphasize that they do have 8 players returning, and that they also have 7 players that are not with the team at the moment just because of their overseas ties. Nate Tibbetts did mention to me that they aren't expecting anyone that's not presently in training camp to be back before tomorrow's game. So I imagine sometime between late tomorrow and Tuesday prior to preseason game 2 for the Mercury at Mortgage Matchup Center on Wednesday next week, might start seeing a couple of players sprinkling back into training camp. But Nate also made sure that no one was worried about players just not being around or available for them just because of the continuity piece, and that they have everything established that they need to still get things done with the pieces that are stateside at the moment.
Well, without further ado, I've been so excited that we're having a podcast today on this particular Friday because, first of all, I rise from the dead this morning. I'm very grumpy. I have to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning. If you guys didn't know, I wake up before God himself on every day that ends in Y. But I wake up this morning and I see that the NBA has posted this letter that 30 years ago today, boom, the WNBA was ratified by NBA people, and shout out to them, right? Thank you for allowing this podcast even be taking place in the first place. But because this is season 30, because this is the anniversary of the WNBA, because we are here having this WNBA podcast, because we host PHNX Mercury podcast, which is one of the original teams that was in the WNBA back in 1997, we get to celebrate the fact that there are throwback jerseys. And this is a first time for the WNBA.
Let's go.
I just the fire. It's so heat. Like my body just like I started sweating because the heat on my screen is too much for me to take. I can't say this enough. Like I need this jersey. I might need the roster top to bottom for this jersey. Like this is not a joke. This is not a drill. The OG Nike logo, the OG WNBA logo in the corner, the shorts. Oh my gosh. DT was looking like she was contemplating, walking away from retirement just so she could have an opportunity to play in these jerseys. These are hot fire. And we're going to get into the court in a second, but the dang jerseys, they just look so good. They're going to look so crisp. And to be honest with you guys, to be very blatant about my feelings, I'm just happy that the Mercury have a jersey that everyone's not going to hate. I personally am tired of hearing everybody moan and whine about the rebrand. So I'm just excited that there is something that fans won't be whining and complaining about. It's like everyone can agree these are fine. Kevin, yeah, I am talking to you.
So you can't see him right now, but the first thing he said was he did one of these. So
hit the Drewski? My bad.
Yeah, listen, I had just gotten up this morning, and I saw it as it was posted, basically, and I was like, man, I've been saying for a while, is the league, we need throwbacks. Like, there's been a long enough history in the league, especially those original looks. And this one specifically, of the 3 original teams who got throwbacks, to the Sparks and the Liberty got throwbacks as well, but the watermelon color that they use was what they call it, right? And then, like, just the shades and everything like that. Mm-hmm. Listen, I don't know. We'll have to see how these shorts fit because I might have to get a pair of shorts. If they're, I know I'm like, we'll see if it might not work for me.
He gonna be looking like pre-Magic Johnson, Larry Bird.
I might have to leave it to the ladies. But if I can get a pair that fits me, I will have a pair of these shorts. It's fire. Like they're doing. I've been so impressed with not cutting any corners as far as celebrating this 30th season, between having the NBA guys wear the 30th anniversary shirts doing warm-ups a couple weeks ago, and now to see the throwbacks, to see a lot of the retro gear that they're bringing back out. We're starting to see throwbacks from unnamed throwback brand based out of Philadelphia that has throwbacks of legendary WNBA players that they're selling now as well. So it's one of the things we talk about, the growth and expansion of a league, which we've celebrated so much with the W, and we're going to continue to celebrate as it continues to grow and expand. But a big part of that is appreciating and paying homage and showing love to those who came before and acknowledging that history. And I'm almost old enough to remember when these uniforms were, well, actually I am old enough to remember when they were originally worn, so now it brings me back in that way too.
Way to catch that at the end.
I am old enough. I do.
I wasn't gonna let you off the hook. For me, I love the return of throwbacks, especially when it's accompanied by a court.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. If you're gonna do it all the way. Otherwise, don't do it at all. So I start there. Orange and yellow. I love purple as much as anybody. Purple is probably my second favorite color, but orange and yellow are as synonymous with the city of Phoenix and the state of Arizona as any other colors in the color spectrum. This particular orange, to your point, Gil, it's not just oh yeah, that's orange. No, this is, I'm up in your face, and I'm like bold, and I'm just brazenly here. It pops, man.
I'm here. I'm very curious to see what the orange court is going to look like. How much of that orange are they able to extrapolate and put onto the paint for the court, the hardwood itself? I love the accompanying of the highlighter yellow with that as well. Yep. It's a very nostalgic yellow. It's not just a basic yellow, like, yeah, it's the sunset. Like, no, this is what it was like in the 90s. And I think that matters a lot, too. The purple accents, not as the primary piece. Imagine purple just not being the main character, being able to take a little bit of a backseat to 2 other colors.
What's funny, Kev?
A fun color spectrum.
You laughing at 90s kids reminiscing about the 90s?
Kind of. I'm just laughing at Steven being like, no, but it was unintentional. Like, I knew what you meant. That's why I was laughing, because I was extrapolating comedy from an otherwise normal sentence. He was like, this wasn't the sunset like it was in the 90s. This is like, and I'm in your face sunset. I'm like, damn, sunsets have shifted that much since the 90s? That's crazy.
You had to be there, bro. You had to be there.
Some of us was outside playing, while others was.
I wasn't poor for another decade.
You weren't. I'm just saying you weren't.
That's crazy.
It's true.
You weren't with us shooting in the gym, bro. You weren't with us shooting in the gym.
I wasn't, man. I wasn't.
Oh.
I wasn't
You were
there
speaking
either.
about the
But the
yellow,
court
though.
is fire.
I wanted to let you speak on the jersey before we get to the court because you say you wanted to go there first, but the floor is yours.
The floor?
Poetry.
Oh man, welcome back to the PHNX Mercury show where all we do is correct jokes. But no, the court is fire, and I was really excited to talk about this court because unless you were talking to Kevin, it kind of looked like you were talking to Kevin, but
No, I was
I'm gonna
talking
go
to you.
okay, cool. My favorite thing about the court, which obviously the Mercury are getting its third court to play on for the 30th anniversary, but my favorite detail about this court is the past Mercury players' names in both of the keys, and the players that have been inducted in the Ring of Honor being in bold in that little player key section. I think it's just so cool. The fact that the Mercury has never strayed away from like paying homage to the people that laid the groundwork for the Mercury to still be here today. It's so cool. And like I tweeted about this earlier, but like we are really living in like one of the most special times. Like it's not always that you're like living through a moment and you're like, wow, this is epic. This is legendary. People are going to talk about this for a long time. But like, this is a moment in women's basketball that people are going to look back on 30, 40 years from now and be like, man, that period of time, that period of players really helped shape the future. And the fact that the Mercury has never strayed away from the OGs, the originals, what got them to this point is really cool and really, really important. And I'm very satisfied with the fact that the Mercury has gone out of their way to celebrate them in such a grand way.
Yeah, it's always a celebratory moment when you have a history that you can lean back into. Ayrton is outside of his perspective on gray jerseys, Ayrton is a great barometer for if a jersey is hot or not. And he sent 2 fire emojis. I'm assuming is in alignment with seeing these orange jerseys resurface for the Mercury. But yeah, anytime you can kind of lean back into your history, whether it be for players, whether it be for championships, plural, or jerseys that kind of tell the story of your franchise's history, always cool. And needless to say, the Mercury have a nostalgia button that only maybe 2 or 3 other teams can press the button on. One of those teams isn't even fully back yet, so it just doesn't hit the same.
Still gotta get their trademark name with the names straightened out.
Exactly. So yeah, the Mercury having that as an advantage to not just play to their fans, but continue to pay homage as well, more than anything else. That's just something that they can do differently and more uniquely than pretty much any other franchise in the league.
I am curious what Ayrton's take on gray jerseys is. Is it good or bad? Like, does he like them or hate them?
You say gray jersey's bad. He says gray jersey's good.
They show so much sweat. Like, you need that spray on the sidelines to like get rid of the. I think it's gross. It's kind of icky. I thought Ayrton had good takes. That's on me, I guess.
Can't
Anyway,
win them all.
you can only have so many dubs in the chat, you know.
Follow the
I
freaking
haven't.
Mamba.
Yeah, what Kevin said. I haven't said this a single time today.
Oh, absolutely not. Oh, nah, man. See, I just gave you a compliment and you come out and say this. Come on, man.
Oh boy, leave a like on this
I'm not
podcast.
even reading that.
Leave a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. But before we get out of here, I did forget we have a super chat from my guy Tyler McDowell Blanken. Got my Merc 5-game fan pack on draft night. Period. Clock that, Tyler. Excited to see KP, Angel, etc. I'm with Erica Hart. I need to get my hands on these new throwback jerseys. Looking forward to y'all's coverage all season. Tyler's my guy. He actually has the first podcast that I ever spoke on about women's basketball in any way. So shout out to him for making me a little less nervous to speak in front of the camera. If you remember the beginning of this podcast, it only lasted so long. But anyways, it was really fun to get to chat with you guys again today about free agency. I'm really excited for next week because while I can't guarantee that we will be back on consistent days just yet, I can't be like, oh, it's Tuesday and Thursday, or oh, it's Wednesday and Friday. I can't do that just yet. I can confidently say you will be getting us on your screen more often, starting very, very soon. So that is with confidence, that's with conviction, and we will be back more frequently very soon. I don't want to throw no shade, but we're kind of waiting on somebody's team to not be playing anymore, and I don't know who we could be talking about, but go Dylan Brooks. But anyways, be sure to follow us on Twitter at PHNX_Mercury. Be sure to follow Steven at StevenPG3 and Gil at GilMcGregor_. Am I right?
You got it.
Dang! Oh my gosh. Erica Lee Day is me. You can also follow our freaking awesome producer at Kevo Post, who, you never know what that guy is going to tweet about, whether it's the NFL, NBA, the NHL. He might tweet about a little baseball. And then obviously he's going to be tweeting about the Mercury all season long. Like, dude is tapped in. If a sports ball is involved, Kevo is tapped in, taking a peek. So I'm really excited for this year. I think that's going to be a kick-ass year of coverage.
We need a Kevin Cam, man.
Kevo Cam.
We can't keep explaining the gestures and things that he's doing, but just know he's very active and very heavily involved in everything that is Mercury basketball to come.
I can't be doing this remote too often. I feel a little bit of FOMO. I won't lie to you guys. Like, feels like I'm like out the circle a little bit, and I don't really like that. I gotta be honest.
Like Squirrel
with you
watching
guys.
SpongeBob and Patrick running up. Yeah, it's looking.
Yes, it's exactly how I feel.
Deborah, coverage of games coming soon. Ayrton, ring season starts now. Championship emoji.
Also, coverage of games, Deborah, for the season. I can't guarantee you days of the week, but what I can guarantee is a post game for the season opener against Las Vegas Aces. So I guess if I can guarantee you guys one thing today, that is that. Be sure to leave a like, 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to PHNX Sports. Also, I haven't said this in so long. Become a diehard because I'm about to be tapped back into the Discord. First of all, we got a fantasy WNBA league that is for diehards only. I don't really bring it up too often on the show because you're either in or you're out, and I think there's only like 12 spots for the league. I'd be happy to be the commissioner of 2 leagues if it came to that point, but we got to get to that many people. So, but fantasy WNBA last year was awesome. You'll never guess who lost. I won't tell you you're looking at her, but I won't tell you you're not looking at her. And fortunately for me, we didn't agree to a punishment, so I don't have to do anything. But I feel like because I just said that probably will change this year, and I should probably put my best effort in to not lose. So, yeah. Anyways, guys, thanks for tapping in with us. We will see you guys next week. Bye.
We all silly like the mayor.